Hi guys, so today we're talking about fermentation, and we're finishing up this last objective right here, still talking about energy transfer. So, fermentation is an anaerobic process by which ATP is produced by glycolysis. What that means is there is no oxygen present in the fermentation process. Our other vocab word is lactic acid. That is the product of fermentation in many types of cells, including human muscle cells. Fermentation allows glycolysis to continue in the absence of oxygen. This helps our bodies store high amounts of oxygen during high energy periods. But our cells cannot always store enough oxygen, so we do have to switch to fermentation every once in a while. This is an anaerobic process, and it does not require oxygen. Glycolysis can be completed when oxygen is present. All it does is make ATP and NADPH to be moved into the further steps of cellular respiration. However, when oxygen is not present, we move into fermentation. This produces less ATP over time, but still makes ATP and NADPH or NADH that can be used in glycolysis. Fermentation itself does not make ATP, but it allows glycolysis to continue. 2 molecules of ATP are produced in glycolysis, and if oxygen is not present after we have pyruvate, we go through 2 types of fermentation that kick back molecules to make more ATP at glycolysis. If oxygen is present, we go through the Krebs cycle and electron transport to make up to 32 molecules of ATP. Without NAD+, which is our electron carrier created in glycolysis would stop. So fermentation allows that process to continue by removing the hydrogens and kicking it back to glycolysis. Eukaryotic cells require NAD+ to pick up the high energy electrons at the breakdown of glucose into pyruvate. Lactic acid fermentation is mostly occurring in the muscle cells of animals whenever oxygen is lacking or not present. It can also occur in the cells of other vertebrates and microorganisms. Lactic acid gets produced as a byproduct, and that's what makes your muscles burn after a workout. This is lactic acid. The first thing that happens is that pyruvate and NADH from glycolysis enter the fermentation process. 2 molecules of NADH provide the energy to convert pyruvate into lactic acid. As the NADH is used, it's converted back into NAD+. Then, those 2 molecules of NAD+ are recycled back to glycolysis, allowing that whole process to continue. So we have the breakdown of glucose, creation of 2 molecules of ATP, 2 pyruvate that go through lactic acid fermentation, create 2 molecules of lactate or lactic acid, cycling NADH and NAD+ back and forth between glycolysis and the fermentation process. The role of fermentation is to constantly supply glycolysis with NAD+ in areas of or times of lack of oxygen. This is the reason that glycolysis can continue. The downside is that buildup of lactic acid, that burning feeling in our muscles. Whenever oxygen is available, though, the lactic acid can be quickly broken down and cellular respiration is able to continue. This is why you see a lot of athletes rolling out their muscles when they're sore or after they work out. It's just allowing them time to give deep breaths and break down that lactic acid. The fermentation and its products are important to everyday life. Think about your diet. Eliminate cheese, bread, and yogurt and anything made with those products. Kind of left with a little bit of a boring lifestyle, but that's because those types of products are produced through fermentation. The other type of fermentation is alcoholic fermentation. This occurs in yeasts and some plants. Its beginning point is the same as lactic acid fermentation. Its end product is different. This is still an anaerobic process occurring when oxygen is not available. Pyruvate and NADH from glycolysis enter the alcoholic fermentation point. Two molecules of NADH provide the energy to break down pyruvate into an ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. That NAD plus is cycled back to glycolysis. The molecules are cycled back and allows this process to keep going. The difference is we get 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, 2 molecules of ethanol. So you get 2 molecules of an ethyl alcohol, 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, and 2 molecules of NAD plus that go back to glycolysis. This occurs in yeast whenever bread is made, pizza crust is made, that yeast uses alcoholic fermentation to cause the dough to rise. The yeast breaks down the sugars in the dough, which feeds first through glycolysis. Carbon dioxide causes the dough to rise. Heat kills off the alcohol and evaporates it into the air. And then the yeast gets killed by the heat as well, which allows us to have that nice and fluffy bread and dough that we love. In bacteria, we use this in the digestive system of animals. This obtains ATP from an anaerobic process, allowing us and animals to digest our foods properly.